This is Commissioner Sandy Brown, and you're listening to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
On Schreiber.
Sidearm whip, scores!
Now it's one. Padel scores! Hands off for Ravel, switches hands and scores!
Carly Omo are showing off those shifty skills.
Right off the bat, there's Lyle Thompson.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Pro Lacrosse Talk podcast, the voice of Pro Lacrosse. I'm Hutton, he's Adam, and together we're bringing you interviews from all your favorite players and coaches, as well as news and analysis from all 4 professional lacrosse leagues. Welcome to another episode of Pro Lacrosse Talk. I'm here with my co-host Adam Moore. This is our MLL preview show, where we're going to break down these MLL rosters heading to Annapolis in 1 week, as well as hear from Commissioner Sandy Brown himself a bit later. But first off, Adam, the Barrage are officially back. You have their roster. How much does that excite you for this upcoming MLL season?
Yeah, I absolutely can't wait. So excited to see the squad back on the field. It's going to be an intense couple days in this tournament style, 5 games. Obviously, I'm a little biased with the Barrage being back, but I'm so excited to see all 6 teams hit the field and get some live action lacrosse going.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I mean, we're going to have at least 2 games every day up until the Final Four, and then the championship will be the lone game. But we have a triple header to start on Saturday. All 6 teams are going to be playing. And then after that, it's going to be off to the races. Each team's going to play each other once, 5 straight games. And then you have, the Final Four on Saturday and a championship on ESPN2 on Sunday. So let's talk a little bit about the broadcast schedule before we kind of get into these teams. Only 3 games on live television with ESPN2. The rest are on ESPN Plus, so you can watch those live still, but it's not going to be on your TV. You have to get a separate subscription. What are your thoughts on that? I was kind of hoping they would get a little bit more TV exposure, especially since there's only a handful of leagues back and you're missing the major 4 still. So a little disappointed in that, but what are your thoughts on that, Adam?
Yeah, obviously you'd love to see it on live TV to get into as many houses as possible, but lacrosse fans will definitely have a chance to still watch with the ESPN Plus subscription. And Sandy Brown, when we did talk to him, mentioned there is a possibility to get a couple more games on live TV as well. So hopefully that's the case and it can get into a few more households. But I am excited we do get the championship game on ESPN2 and that first Sunday set of games on TV to get into as many households as possible. So,
yeah, no, I think that first set of Sunday games is going to be important because if they get a pretty good TV ratings, we hopefully can get some of these games later in the week flexed. Maybe the Saturday matchups at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. hopefully on July 25th. We'll see. That's when you're starting to get into more. I think that's baseball's opening day. I don't think it's going to be tough to kind of get any traction there. So the fact that they still do have that Sunday on ESPN2 is good. But yeah, you would like to see a little bit more, maybe even on ESPNU if they have the space. We don't make those decisions, and hopefully, the MLL and Sandy Brown can kind of use their pool a little bit to get more games on. But right now you can watch all of them on ESPN Plus, which is good. Subscriptions are pretty cheap. You can also get them, I think, in the Disney Plus Hulu bundle. So it's pretty easy and accessible to get those games. But, yeah, we would like to see a little bit more TV exposure because that's how you really grow the game. But they did release their rosters earlier this past week. So there was some big names that were kind of missing. I mean, we talked a little bit about Kevin Crowley, who the Barrage traded their top pick in the draft, 3rd overall pick to the Lizards to acquire him. And he is not participating. A few other people missing, Steele Stanwyck, MVP last season. Luckily the Bayhawks kind of replenished their attack a little bit, adding Callum Crawford. But I think that's going to be a big piece. He really meshed well with Lyle Thompson and Colin Heacock down there. So I don't know. It's kind of tough, the fact that they're going to be missing him. He played such a huge role last year, but I think they're set that they still have a stacked roster that I think they'll be okay. Some other names though, James Fahey. He announced that he's stepping away from lacrosse to kind of let his body heal. It's kind of more of an indefinite step away. I wouldn't say he retired officially. His Instagram post leaned towards that he was just stepping away for now, kind of reevaluating so that maybe he could return in the future. Nick Mellon, who was the 4th overall pick for the Cannons, he's unable to participate. There was a big debate whether, he why he didn't get drafted in the PLL, and then he ended up going, MLL, but now he's not even going to get to play, which is, unfortunate. Probably work conflict there. Kyle Denoff, another unsung hero for that midfield line for the Cannons. But again, they're pretty loaded. I think they'll be all right without him. We heard Sean Evans might be returning to the field with the Hammerheads, but he is also absent, as well as Drew Shantz. And then, with Denver, it originally looked like we were going to miss Miles Silva, and then Tom Rigney was headed to the PLL. But we do hear that they are coming and getting to play, which is great news, I think, for both of them as well as for the Outlaws. We'll get into that a little bit later, but that kind of came down on the wire like last minute, and a lot of people were asking kind of why. And again, this is speculation on my part, but being an Army reservist, a lot of times with your Army training, you don't get your dates for when you're going to training till maybe even a week before. So I think they were waiting on that, especially with COVID-19 causing a lot of delays and things and different scheduling. They go away for 3 to 4 months for their basic officer leadership course, and they're kind of waiting on the Army to give them the green light on whether they can play in this tournament or whether it's going to conflict with their training. And it sounds like it's not going to conflict. They're able to play for this week. And as I mentioned on Twitter, the last time Miles Silva and Tom Rigney were in Annapolis, they won that 9-8 overtime against Navy in the 100th meeting of the Army-Navy lacrosse game. So they have a little bit of history winning in Annapolis. Hopefully, they can continue that with the Outlaws together. But those are kind of like the big missing, and then you mentioned the 2 ads by the Outlaws. But just as a whole, Adam, looking at these rosters, which roster really stands out to you as the strongest?
This is an offensive league, and I think that Cannons roster, after all the moves they made this past offseason, are at the top of my list. They kept guys like Mark Cockerton, who was one of their leading scorers last year. They added arguably 2 of the best players in the league with Randy Stotts and Brian Cole. So I don't see how this offense isn't going to score double-digit points per game. Not to mention a guy like Bryce Wasserman is also added to this roster. So I'm pretty surprised at the return they did get for Cole and Stotts. It was big for the Cannons to add 2 of the top offensive threats in the league to an already pretty potent offense.
If it's not the Cannons, I don't know who it is. Like they're just loaded top to bottom. Again, missing Fahey is going to be kind of a disappointment, and not having Mellon suit up also. But they still got Justin Pugel there. Their offense of midfielders are just loaded with Kyle Jackson, Cal Dirth. Then you got Challen Rogers, who can go both ways, play short stick defensive midi as well if you need him. He can score as well. I mean, the reigning transition player back-to-back in the NLL. And then that attack. I mean, adding Randy Stotts, I think, is huge. I really don't think the Barrage should have parted ways with him because, him and Shane Jackson paired up really, really well together. I know they still got Mark Matthews there. I know they were probably anticipating getting Crowley into that attack. And they still have Tommy Palisak as well. So I don't think they're going to really struggle on the offensive side. Add Brendan Sunday into that mix as well. But, giving up a guy like Randy Stotts, you got to get a big piece back. They get P.T. Ritchie, which is huge for their defense. He's a leader. He's a veteran. But, I think it's just really given the Cannons an unfair advantage. I mean, he is going to be feeding, Bryce Wasserman. He's going to be feeding Mark Cockerton. He's just going to be dropping apples everywhere for these guys. And that offense is going to go through him. I could see him maybe having an MVP season depending on, how he holds up throughout this week, because I just don't think there's another player really in the league with his skill set now. And the fact that, the Cannons have him and arguably one of the best shooters in Mark Cockerton, and then you got a great Dodger and Bryce Wasserman. It's going to be very interesting to see. But another attack line that kind of could rival them a little bit is the Hammerheads. I really like their offense. We'll get to the defense a little bit later because they kind of got rated by the PLL. A lot of, different questions there other than in goal with Sean Scanoni. But you got Michael Kraus. You have Bubble Voigt, who had a phenomenal year last year with the Rattlers. He's going to have a larger role. And then you trade for Will Sands. So Sands can do a little bit more. Not that Bryce Wasserman didn't have a phenomenal year with the Rattlers, but Bryce is going to, take the ball. He's going to have the ball in the stick a lot. He's going to take it to the cage. He's going to score your goals. Will Sands can be that distributor a little bit more. He can feed a Michael Krause who can kind of, blend in all over the field. He can dodge from the wings. Then you got Bubba Voigt, who's going to be a natural goal scorer, who I think we're going to see a lot hover around the crease. They're going to use that offense is going to be very fluid, I think. Will Sands was kind of all over the field last year as well. So I really like that offense. The defense, a lot of question marks there. I mean, you lose Donnie Moss, who you can run at short stick as well as long pole. You lose Jake Pulver, Eli Salama, and then Craig Chick. I mean, you lose those 4 defenders. It's going to be tough to kind of, for them to kind of defend in front of Sean Scanoni. We'll see. He's going to have to face a lot of shots. Not that he didn't last year, but he's going to have to really be on their A game, and they're going to really have to outscore teams, I think, to win. But they're another roster that I kind of look at that, could surprise some people, and then the Barrage too are another one that we've talked about. I'm going to be really interested to see how they mesh as in their first year, even though, have a lot of people returning from that Blaze roster. They did go through a massive overhaul. They still have Liam Burns on the defense. They added, Mark Ivanchik on defense. They added some other pieces too, like, Anthony Joachim, who's going to be a 2-way midi for them. Tyson Gibson is at the midfield for the Barrage. I mean, they've added some pieces in addition to the pieces that are already there, like a Tommy Palasek, and then Alex Woodall at the faceoff X. He's going to get you possessions. They have the offense with Shane Jackson, Brendan Sunday, and Tommy Palasek to, score a lot of points. And as long as Alex Woodall keeps make it take it, I think they could be, kind of scary. And Mark Matthews too, again, lethal out there. So I think that's why they decided they could move on from Brian Cole and Randy Stotts. But, I would have liked to see them get a little bit more than P.T. Ritchie in return. Again, not a knock on P.T. Ritchie. I think he's going to really be a leader on this defense. But even if you get back what you want in a trade to give up those 2 pieces, it's, people are still going to be questioning that, I think, when we see the Barrage face the Cannons. So it'll definitely be interesting. But is there any rosters that you're kind of suspect? Like, where are some of the holes that you see in some of these other rosters?
Yeah, the main one you spoke about is that Hammerheads defense, and no fault of their own. They just got pillaged based off of the guys who left for the PLL. So that's a big one. Then curious to see what the Lizards do too. They lost arguably the best player in the league last year in Rob Pinnell, one of the best players in the league in Rob Pinnell, who quietly had 63 points last year, right? So that whenever you lose that type of output, it's going to be tough to replace that. And, they brought some guys in like Colin Burke and Andrew Pettit, who hopefully will be able to make up for some of that. But they're both rookies. So I don't see them making as big of an impact as a guy like Rob Pinnell would have if he was still on that Lizards roster. So they still have strong guys like those aforementioned rookies and Nicky Galasso, Dylan Malloy. So they should be able to score still. But I'm curious to see what they do with losing a big piece like Rob Pinnell, because you mentioned it with Randy Stotts. Whenever you lose an arguably top 10 player in professional lacrosse, even if you get a combination of players that equal that, it's going to be a big loss for your squad.
Yeah, I know. And I think Justin Ray is going to have, a really big year for them to make an impact. I don't have too high of hopes for them. They still have a leader, Ben Randall, on the defense, as well as Jack Harrigan. So, they could surprise us. But again, like you said, with the Pinnell situation, people kind of forget that he had 63 points last year because they were so bad still. You lose him, that's not a good sign, when you're already last and then you lose arguably one of the best players in lacrosse. So, Again, I think the writing was on the wall for Pinnell, but people forget that he still had a productive season last year. So that's going to be interesting. These rosters, though, I think a lot of the teams still match up really, really well with each other. Like, I don't think we're going to have I think we'll still have some parity, even though, I do have a team not winning any of the games. I still think they're going to be close. They're going to be exciting games. But with that, let's kind of go through. We're not going to go through all the games. We'll go through our records prediction. So, Adam, why don't you start off with where do you see each team, starting with the Cannons, finishing?
Yeah, based off of what we have, I have the Cannons finishing in first place. Bayhawks, too, the defending champs, still having a really great 5-game series. Outlaws and Philly making the playoffs. That last spot in the playoffs is going to be to the Barrage. I think they have a really strong offense, like I mentioned, and I think their defense can hold them off. Lizards 5, Hammerhead 6, with just mainly because of that loss on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, no, I have the same. I have the Cannons finishing 5-0. I think the Bayhawks could give them trouble, but I really don't see them losing to any other team. And then I have the Bayhawks finishing 3-2, Outlaws 3-2, Barrage 2-3, Hammerheads 2-3, and Lizards 0-5. But I have the Barrage getting in because they win the head-to-head matchup over the Hammerheads.
And I will say, that we're looking at these rosters from a longevity standpoint of a potential full season, right? I mean, we're looking at them based off of this 5-game series, looking at where they have holes potentially and where they're going to succeed. But some of these squads have back-to-back. All these squads have back-to-back games in certain days. So you could see, depending on injury, depending on a lot of different things, that these outcomes are vastly different. Obviously, we have squads that we think are going to make the playoffs just based off of how strong their rosters are. But this is a sprint, and it's going to be who's prepared for that sprint who makes the playoffs.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, injuries could be killer in this series. Most teams are playing back-to-back games every day. So, yeah, the Barrage, they have the toughest schedule. But then luckily, if they get some wins and they get in playoff contention, they do have the most rest before that Final Four. So we have all the same Final Four teams. Again, the Outlaws, I think, just because of the leadership from, John Grant Jr., and Max Adler on that team, I think you can't count them out. But it will be interesting to see what they do without Zach Courier, without Eli Gobrecht, Finn Sullivan. I think that's why Tom Rigney coming on is huge for them. They get a really solid defender. Even though he's a rookie, I think he can step in and really make an impact on that squad. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year, but you still have Aslanian on the attack. They're still going to put up points. Ryan Lee's still going to be a force on the attack. They still have Mikey Schlosser dodging from the midfield. Dan Baccaro, they added him on attack. I think he's going to have a really good rookie season. So, they're another team that might be flying a little bit under the radar, compared to the Bayhawks and the Cannons. But they can also be a contender. I have them winning, going 3-2. But, they could easily, too, surprise people and go 5-0. I think it's really them, Bayhawks, and Cannons as the top 3 teams in the league. We've kind of been accustomed to them. That kind of being the case anyway, but I think it's going to still be the same thing with this series. But with that, let's put our money where our mouth is, Adam. Who do you like to make it to the championship and then eventually win the championship?
Yeah, I strategically selected my 4 playoff teams from my head and my heart, I guess you could say. Obviously, those top 3 squads we have similar, and then Philly sneaking in there just because I'd love to see the Philly squad make the playoffs. I do see the Cannons beating Philly in that first semifinal game. Their offense is just too potent. I was super excited to see a rematch of last year's championship in the other semifinal game against the Bayhawks and Outlaws. I have the Outlaws avenging their loss in the title game last year to the Bayhawks. I have the championship Cannons, Outlaws, and I just, like I've been mentioning, think that Cannon squad is too potent of an offense, and I think the Cannons are your 2020 MLL champs.
All right, I have the same MLL champion as you. I do like the Cannons, but I'm going Cannons over Bayhawks. I think the Bayhawks get the best of the Outlaws. Again, a lot of talent still in that Bayhawks offense. When you have MVP Lyle Thompson, he's going to cause some problems on that defense. The Outlaws, though, I think they're hungry for revenge, and if that's one of our Final Four matchups is the Outlaws Bayhawks, I think we couldn't ask for a better one. I really hope that's what it ends up being, or maybe we get a rematch in the title game too, depending on how things shake out. But I know we're not differing a lot on a lot of these, but I do like the Cannons a lot. Again, I think they're the strongest team. I think Coach Quirk did a great job of assembling this team this offseason, and they're also my pick for the 2020 MLL Championship.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Pro Lacrosse Talk podcast. Today I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Anchor. We've been using Anchor for the Pro Lacrosse Talk podcast since the very start. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place, and better yet, it's free. They allow you to easily record and edit your podcast, and once it's published, they send it out to all the major networks such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. They also connect you with advertisers so you can start making money from your podcast right away. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast today, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Today, I also want to talk to you about our affiliate, Stitcher Premium. You can use Stitcher Premium to listen to shows ad-free like Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, Wolverine the Lost Trail, or our personal favorite, The Fantasy Footballers. For only $4.99 a month or $39.99 a year, you get access to Stitcher Originals, bonus episodes, and comedy albums. And if you visit Stitcher.com today and use the code LACROSSE, you can get 1 month of Stitcher Premium for free. So head on over to Stitcher.com, sign up, and get your free trial today.
So with that, though, that wraps up our preview. But let's go to our interview with Sandy Brown, hear a little bit what he had to say, previewing this upcoming season. It is their 20th anniversary season. So let's hear from Commissioner Sandy Brown about the upcoming 2020 MLL season. We are excited to have Major League Lacrosse Commissioner Sandy Brown join us again today to discuss the league's announcement for their 20th anniversary season that will take place later this month in Annapolis, Maryland. Sandy, welcome to the show. We appreciate you joining us. First off, we want to talk about the big announcement. We know this has been in the works for a while since you guys, initially announced that you were postponing the season due to COVID-19. So walk us through a little bit about the timeline and the process of making this decision to do this 1 week season in Annapolis.
Well, obviously it required a lot of discussion with our players to make sure that whatever we were going to do was going to be done with their interests at heart, in particular their safety. So we spent a lot of time analyzing various options, including being in multiple cities. As you are aware, we have 2 new franchises this year, one in Philadelphia and one in Connecticut. And we certainly wanted to have those fans have the opportunity to be able to see their teams. And obviously create a situation that is as normal as possible, I should say, in this current environment. And after a lot of discussion, we felt that it was best for us to be in one location and effectively be in a bubble, so that we could really keep track of all of our players, all those associated with the event, and really create an environment that was as safe as possible for everyone. So that we could make this happen. And in terms of where we were going to hold the event, the state of Maryland, in particular, Governor Hogan has done an incredible job in terms of managing this whole COVID pandemic. And it just so happened that we have had a lot of great and rich history in the city of Annapolis. The Naval Academy was gracious enough, Vice Admiral Buck, to give us a place to hold the event, and we decided that with all the stars aligned, this was going to make the most amount of sense for us. So, and we also, and the other thing I will tell you is that Chesapeake Bayhawks are obviously the defending champions, and this Annapolis is a tremendous place to be able to do anything, much less play lacrosse, and it just all worked out that way.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we're super excited to see the players hit the field. So let's kind of talk about the players a little bit. You mentioned player safety is a precedent. What kind of conversations were you having with the Players Council and some other players to make sure that this is a safe environment for them to be in?
Well, I guess we start with the protocol. We started off with the Bundesliga protocol, which is a voluminous document that is incredibly comprehensive, and we use that as our basis. And then we brought in state officials. We brought in a number of physicians, many of which are associated with the other professional leagues. I reached out to Adam Silver, who's the commissioner of the NBA. He's an old friend of mine, to get some context in terms of what they were doing. So really it was a combination of a lot of best practices from a number of different vantage points. And we came up with a very comprehensive protocol that basically assuaged any of the concerns from our physicians and in turn assuaged any of the concerns from our players. And all of the players had a chance to look at this protocol, weigh in, provide their input, and they were suitably pleased with what we had put in front of them, and felt this was something that was done with their best interest at heart. And as a result, we followed the thing to the letter of the law. And it means that we are in a situation where we are getting an environment, or providing an environment that is going to be one which is going to allow us to be able to have the best lacrosse we possibly can in very difficult circumstances, in a condensed period of time that we need to make sure that we put on a great show. And I think our guys are eager to do it.
No, yeah, that's great. And I think it's nice too that you mentioned that you talked with Adam Silver a little bit. The NBA is going to be returning later this month. You guys are actually getting ahead of a lot of the leagues though in your return. And that also gives you the opportunity to be on ESPN's family of networks on ESPN Plus. So talk to us a little bit about this broadcast deal with ESPN, and what excites you the most about, televising all these lacrosse games.
Well, I mean, we haven't seen lacrosse on television since the beginning of March. And the fact is that they are leaning in on this really well this year. So I'm excited about that. I think we'll have 3 games right now on linear on ESPN2 on the 19th of July. And then we'll have another game on our championship game, obviously, on the 26th. So we may get more. We'll see what happens. I mean, last year they made some changes in the week leading up to our Final Four, and it all worked out. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But the fact of the matter is that we'll have the A team in terms of talent, with Joe Beninati and Quinn Kesenick, and of course Booker Cargan and Don Zimmerman will be involved. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, getting the crew back together, right? That'll be a lot of fun to listen in and watch. And, kind of going off the ESPN side of things, let's talk a little bit about some new sponsorships you have with Pal Lacrosse and Signature, in addition to renewing a few with New Balance and Cascade. How important was it really to get these sponsors on board for this condensed season?
Well, it's always important when you have new sponsors, and we had conversations with a number of the different endemics as well as a lot of the non-endemics. And I think one of the issues that anybody is faced with in this environment where they're providing product is being able to get access to that product. And a lot of the, as you know, with all the manufacturing that's done in China, for example, that pipeline has certainly been compromised as a result of COVID. And so, we haven't been able to get, there are probably some sponsors that we would like to have gotten, and I know would like to have been a part of it, but they couldn't activate because they didn't have product. So in any event, it is what it is. And we're excited that we have the support that we do. And as I said, we're all about trying to put on a really good show.
No, I think that's great. And I think the final thing we want to kind of know too is like, how is your excitement level too for the fact that this is the 20th anniversary season? I know you guys have been putting a lot into discussing the history of the league on social media and on your website. So how important was it too for you guys to return to play and, get this 20th anniversary season out there in 2020?
Well, I think it was critical that we did this. I think for a lot of reasons, for the sporting world, for the lacrosse world. We've been around for 20 years. We've had the best in the sport have played in this league. We have some great storylines this year. Of course, Lyle Thompson coming back, John Grant Jr. He's going to be at Hopkins here in the fall. We have 2 new franchises. We have the Chesapeake Bayhawks is trying to defend, and obviously the Denver Outlaws are going to have something to say about that. And some very strong teams coming out of Boston, out of Philadelphia, out of New York. So I think it's going to be just a great week of lacrosse. And if you're a fan, it's just something you're not going to want to miss. And our guys are excited to get out there, and it's going to be taxing. It's Maryland. It's the second half of July, and we're playing a lot of games in a short period of time, but I think you're going to still see some tremendous lacrosse.
Yeah, no, it's going to be super exciting to watch. There'll be 2 games on every day, pretty much from the start. I think 3 on that opening day. We're certainly excited to watch it on ESPN. You mentioned Joey B. Joe Beninati is going to be broadcasting. I'm a Caps fan, so I love to hear that. I love when he makes his way back on the lacrosse. So really excited about that. We appreciate you joining us, Commissioner Brown. And again, best of luck with this 2020 season.
Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, so that was our chat with Commissioner Brown. We appreciate him coming on. Again, we hope some of those games get flexed, maybe to ESPN2 or ESPNU. Again, not holding my breath for that, but that would be really nice if that does happen. But still, sign up for that ESPN Plus subscription. Pretty cheap, I think. We're going to get 18 games throughout this week. It's going to be really exciting to watch. I'm really glad that they were able to get a season still, and having it in Annapolis at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium is going to be pretty cool too. It's a great venue. No fans going to be there, but at least you'll have that atmosphere that we're accustomed to, with the Bayhawks, as well as past championships as well. So I think it's a good venue. Hopefully everyone stays safe. Again, it's going to be interesting. I think it's not a matter of if someone gets sick, but when. So hopefully, I think they have the correct protocols in place to alleviate that. I know everyone's getting tested daily before they enter that bubble. But it will be interesting to see, sports. We're seeing a lot with the MLS and the women's soccer too is, teams are having to pull out because people are getting sick. So that's another thing to kind of temper our expectations on, is we do have to still deal with this pandemic. But hopefully we get a full season of MLL lacrosse. I know you're excited, Adam. I am too. But with that wraps up our MLL preview. Thank you guys for listening, and we hope you tune in next time to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
Today I also want to talk to you about our affiliate Parkside Cards. Parkside Cards is your go-to source for Major League Lacrosse trading cards. They have a variety of packs on their website, including a box set that comes with 4 tickets to an MLL game, and a Lyle Thompson signature pack that comes with a limited edition signed Lyle Thompson card. And the best part is we've teamed up with Parkside Cards to provide you with a special discount. Simply visit parksidecards.com and use the code PLT to save 20% on your order today.